Hideouts in Assassin's Creed are places where you can just relax stress-free without ever having to worry about a thing. These could simply just be a building, an entire cafe, a train, or perhaps an entire town. That's why I'm going to rank all the hideouts in Assassin's Creed from worst to best. Do remember that this is all personal preference, so you'll definitely have a different opinion. So with that said, let's just jump right into it. Now, starting off dead last, I've gone with Fort Arsenal from Assassin's Creed Rogue. Now, I wouldn't even be surprised if a lot of you watching this did not even know that this was the hideout, considering it's mentioned in like one line, and it can easily be overlooked. Anyway, Fort Arsenal to me is the definition of judging a book by its cover. From the outside looking in, it's honestly quite a beautiful building, and even the area around it. But it's the inside of the house itself is where it goes downhill. There's only 3 very cramped rooms and the inside looks very old and antique, but not in a good way. I mean, you can't even go upstairs, despite it clearly showing that it has many floors. Unlike the other hideouts in Assassin's Creed, you're not able to upgrade anything here or even interact with anything. I'd much rather prefer the Morrigan being the hideout for this game, because the things that you can do inside Fort Arsenal can also be done on your ship. So yeah, all in all, I'd describe Fort Arsenal in Assassin's Creed Rogue as a catfish. On the outside it's amazing, but you quickly become disappointed the moment you enter the building. Okay, so next up after the atrocity that was Fort Arsenal, let's move over to Assassin's Creed Syndicate, and more specifically, the Steam Train hideout. Now I have to say, except for the Fort Arsenal hideout in Rogue, the rest of the hideouts in this video are not bad at all. Anyway, for the Steam Train hideout, I describe it as very detailed despite it being very cramped. It's a hideout that is of course within a constant moving steam train that travels throughout Victorian London. I think that's pretty cool. I mean, what other hideout in any other video game is constantly on the move? The train hideout takes the phrase hide in plain sight to a whole nother level. Anyway, the hideout itself is very detailed. However, its only downside is of course the size, which is pretty obvious considering it's a train. I like the little interactions that you can have with certain things. Depending on which fry twin you're playing as, you can have brief conversations with the other one. There's a lot of little details on the train, such as interior decor being fireplaces, private studies, bedrooms and much more, all cramped together on this very small train. And since everything is so close together, you'd never really get lost looking for something. You can view the assassination wall, upgrade your gangs, view collectibles and interact with every little thing. Oh, and because this game is considered a kind of newer Assassin's Creed game, the little textures and details of pretty much everything is quite something. I like the fact that you can even go on top of the train while it's moving, and even jump off when you feel like you're done being in your hideout. Oh, and I don't know if it's just me, but sometimes the hideout itself disappears from the map. So there'd be situations where the train isn't even on the map anymore. Oh boy, now this particular hideout might be a bit controversial, but hear me out and understand my reasons for why I placed Masyaf Castle here in the video. A lot of people will place Masyaf Castle as a hideout that is at least in their top 3, but for me, I feel like one of the main reasons why people love this hideout so much is for nostalgia purposes. Other than walking around and even collecting flags, the hideout itself is completely useless in terms of a functioning hideout for the player. There was no interacting with objects, no NPC side quests, there was just nothing. Now of course Assassin's Creed 1 is an old game and it's the first game, so it's obvious that it's completely past its time. The inside of the castle feels like one giant room. Other than Al Mualim's study, there's quite literally nothing there. I will give credit to how stunning it looks though. The massive castle itself, the mountain range and the back of the castle outside are all great. Even the design of it. What I mean by design is the fact that enemies can only attack Masyaf Castle from one direction, and the castle's trap that can take out enemies is quite handy. I love the fact that this castle is based on the real Masyaf Castle, where actual real life assassins called the Nizari Ismailis resided. I also love the fact that we even returned to Masyaf Castle as Ezio during Assassin's Creed Revelations. Who knows, maybe in an Assassin's Creed 1 remake, we'll see a more improved Masyaf Castle with more functioning features and interactions. Now moving on from Masyaf Castle, the next hideout I'd go with is the Galata hideout from Assassin's Creed Revelations. The Galata hideout was basically located towards the northern side of Constantinople and served as the base for the Ottoman Brotherhood of Assassins. It's also your hideout as well. Now in terms of its outside appearance, it's nothing special. However, it's perfectly disguised as a regular looking building. But inside, however, is where the hideout truly shines. The moment that you enter, you're greeted by something out of the ordinary, with that being the hideout itself under the building is in some sort of a cave. The hideout as a whole is pretty cool. There's about 5 rooms and each one actually has things to do and interact with. There's the bomb room, the armor room, the weapon room, the library, and also the main kind of hub room. Here is where you can manage your assassin recruits and send them off to do missions or level them up. The hideout as a whole fits perfectly with the time period, and you can see pieces of furniture that match exactly where the setting takes place. It's an interesting hideout, being kind of underground, which many people will love. Oh, and fun fact, the Galata hideout is the last assassin hideout to have a library. Okay, now here's an interesting one. I was not particularly a fan of Assassin's Creed Valhalla as a game. The story was way too long, the world was quite dull, and the characters were not that interesting to me. But in a game in which I was not a fan of, I can admit the Ravensthorpe settlement was kind of decent. I love the idea of building a settlement from the grounds up, renovating and adding new buildings to the settlement and watching it grow. Also, fuck you reader for telling me the same damn story over and over again. Now here's where it gets disappointing. Ravensthorpe to me felt like wasted potential. It just felt lifeless at times because the characters would not be doing anything. I mean, you can even see Ranvi standing at the same table 24/7 doing nothing at all. Maybe they could have implemented NPC routines or just anything instead of stationary characters. Ubisoft should have included features like irregular attacks on the settlement, which could have added more of a sense of life to it, or even wagons and traders just passing by, creating kind of a more immersive experience. And for the characters in Ravensthorpe, unique questlines with meaningful rewards similar to Assassin's Creed 3's Homestead missions. Those would have been a game changer. As you built more structures, unlocking additional side quests would have made it a lot more engaging. So I can definitely see the potential that Ravensthorpe had, alongside the vision that Ubisoft had for it, but it felt like they didn't quite execute it as well as they could have. Okay, now moving on from Ravensthorpe, let's take a step back and go to the Tiber Island headquarters in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. Now, despite the Tiber Island headquarters' very unusual design from the outside, the inside is pretty cozy. Oh, and ignore my Desmond Miles outfit. I don't even know why I put it on during the recording. Anyway, the hideout inside is very matching of the Renaissance setting, and you can just tell it is by just the interior of the furniture. The hideout is of course kind of on a remote island, hence the name Tiber Island, which makes it secluded and out of reach from enemy guards. The rooms inside the hideout are a personal favourite out of the entire Ezio collection. In the main hub room, you can of course view and manage your assassin recruits, just like in Revelations. In the weapons room, you can see and interact with every weapon you unlock. And also what I found quite fun is being able to interact and view descriptions of each of the objects related to the Da Vinci missions that you do in game. There's also a room full of paintings that all relate to the Borgia family, who are of course the main antagonists in the game, and you can even read descriptions of each one of them. Now, one of my favourite rooms in the entire hideout is the ceremony room. If your assassin recruit ever becomes a master assassin, this is the room where the ceremony would take place, and we even get a nice cutscene to go with it. So yeah, all in all, the Tiber Island headquarters is a very nice cozy hideout. Okay, now we're getting closer to the best hideout in Assassin's Creed. But for now, at this spot, I've gone with Assassin's Creed Unity's Cafe Theatre. I mean, first off, visually it's stunning. The step up in game engine from Rogue to Unity massively helps with the look of the hideout. Now, the Cafe Theatre, as its name suggests, is in a hideout that's blended in with a cafe. The layout of the entire building is pretty complex, and I'll admit that it did take me quite some time to get used to the surroundings. But once I did, it's pretty great. I love the fact that you can interact with so many things around the hideout, from being able to renovate the cafe and collect income, to having access to an entire room purely for training. And then there's the legacy room. This is the room where you can see all of the outfits you unlock throughout the entire game. I love this feature, and it's one of my most requested things that needs to return because I love being able to view all the outfits you unlock. There's also Arno's personal room where you can read letters that were sent from Elise, but she doesn't really send much because, well, she's dead. Anyway, the building itself is not just the hideout, there's also underneath. Here we can see the armor room where there would be the Thomas de Carnelian's outfit on display. It's of course not there because I already unlocked it. There's also a tunnel to the Assassin Headquarters, which was quite cool, I guess. The Assassin Headquarters is just as detailed as the Cafe Theatre. So yeah, beyond all of this, the Cafe Theatre is actually quite enjoyable to explore. It may take some time to explore it from top to bottom, but it's definitely detailed. Now we're entering the top 3, and I'll be completely honest here. Out of all the ranking style videos I've created on my channel, this particular top 3 was the hardest to pick from, as I found all 3 of them to be amazing in their own way. But sadly, one of the 3 has to be third, and for that reason, I'll place Great Inagua as my third favourite. Now, Great Inagua is not the actual name of the hideout, but rather the entire island that your hideout is on. You're free to explore and walk around this island because it's practically yours. There's so much going on the moment you step off the jackdaw and step foot onto the island. First off, the village, or the town, is complete with buildings and actual vendors. You can find a tavern, a general store, and a place for you to repair your ship. What I love about this particular island are the views. It was clearly designed to give off breathtaking views. You can even see your hideout all the way from the docks in all of its beauty. Speaking of the hideout, it's very spacious. It once belonged to the Templar Julian de Casse, and you can tell the previous owner before him was very wealthy. I love the feature of the Templar armor being locked behind a gate in which you need to unlock it, especially the side missions that came with it. You can also view and manage Kenway's fleet from this table. The reason why this hideout is so great is not just this building, it's because of everything around it and even under it. For example, if you go under the mansion, there's a treasure room, which I assume once belonged to the Templar before. Oh, and also there's an alternative way out which leads to this stunning view. There's also the way in, depending on how you look at it. Oh, and behind the mansion is a massive jungle that you can explore, which is also part of the story itself, so I won't go too much into it. So yeah, all in all, Great Inagua for me is definitely a top 3 hideout in the entire series. Okay, now for the second best hideout. I've ultimately decided on Villa Auditore, or more specifically, Monteriggioni as a whole. So starting off from the entrance, it's clear that this is a very small town and it's all yours. First off, look at this view of the entire town. What I found quite fun to do is just parkour from each building because the routes that you can take are pretty impressive. Anyway, before I get into Villa Auditore, there's the vendors. You have a vendor that sells you treasure maps and paintings, a doctor, a tailor, and even a blacksmith. What I do love about Monteriggioni is that unlike Ravensthorpe, the entire settlement is walled off and it's got this cozy home feeling to it. Also, on the way to Villa Auditore, there's a training area for you to use in case you somehow forgot how to use combat in this game, which I doubt. And then there's Villa Auditore itself. This to me is a staple of Assassin's Creed, and it's definitely the most iconic safe house in this video by far. The villa itself has 4 rooms on the bottom floor. The first being the room where you can renovate the town itself by adding new buildings to it, which further increases your income. As you can see, it's pretty easy to get money in this game. Then you can collect it by approaching this chest, as well as seeing your progress on the town by speaking to your sister Claudia. Anyway, the second room is Maria Auditore's room, who for some reason is never actually there. There is also this locked door, which I feel like should have been utilized by Ubisoft. Anyway, after Mario's room, there's the armor room, which of course displays all the armor that you unlock throughout the entire game. Oh, and also I like how you can see a model of the flying machine that Da Vinci created. There's also the weapons room, which just like the armor room, displays all the weapons you unlock throughout the entire game. Now, moving on to upstairs, there's really not much up here, except for Maria just sitting there not saying a single word. I believe the only way she speaks is if you collect all 100 feathers, but ain't nobody got time for that. There is also another room above the second floor, which is quite interesting. You can view and examine all the targets that you killed throughout the entire game, and looking back at it now, I didn't realize how many there were. Oh, and how could I forget the most iconic part of Villa Auditore, and that is the sanctuary where the assassin statues are on display in all of their glory. Speaking of the statues, check out this video I made, where I explain all the statues in detail. So yeah, that's Villa Auditore and Monteriggioni as my second favourite. Now, I wonder what number 1 could be. Okay, so now we finally have the number 1 spot, and my personal favourite hideout in Assassin's Creed. And that belongs to the Davenport Homestead. Now, the only comparison I can even make for this would be Ravensthorpe, as both were settlements with life. The reason that I love the homestead in Assassin's Creed 3 is because of the complete narrative that was centered around the homestead itself. It fully immersed you in the characters, the setting, and the forming a connection with the NPCs. To me, it's one of the main highlights of the game. I remember when I first played this game many years ago on the PS3, and during my first playthrough, I just completely skipped over the homestead stuff entirely. And now that I've replayed Assassin's Creed 3 recently, it truly breathes new life into the game. I used to have reservations about Connor, finding him somewhat dull, but these homestead missions truly showcase his genuine personality. So in a way, I've come to appreciate these missions even more than the main storyline itself. Anyway, let's talk a little on the mansion itself. From the outside, it's gorgeous, especially the view you have of the cove where the ships would be docked. The first floor consisted of a kitchen, a dining room and Achilles' bedroom. The second floor consisted of Connor's bedroom, a gallery of paintings and trophies and also books and letters. Every room in this house fit with the time period, and you can clearly see that in the design of everything from the paintings to the scarves on the walls. I loved seeing all the lore within every object that Achilles had stored, from books, newspapers, maps and letters. And then there's underneath the home itself, where we can activate the secret door into the basement. Here there's all the outfits you unlock throughout the entire game, a board that's full of information regarding the Templars, an armory that's full of weapons like muskets, bayonets and also Connor's weapons. There's also a nice addition where we can see the mementos that Connor keeps from the Templars' deaths. So yeah, you can see why the Davenport Homestead is my favourite. It feels very relaxing to just explore, and there's so much of it to explore. One of the most underrated features is the fact that the homestead itself goes through seasonal changes. I mean, you can watch it be snowy to clear and so on. It's the perfect showing of what an assassin hideout is. Okay, so there you have it, my favourite hideouts in the entire series. Honourable mentions goes to the Jackdaw from Black Flag, the Morrigan from Rogue, the Adrestia from Odyssey, and also the Hidden Ones hub from Assassin's Creed Origins. 3 of those are ships, and they're not necessarily considered hideouts, but some people may think otherwise. Honestly, the Morrigan ship from Assassin's Creed Rogue is probably better than Fort Arsenal. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and with that said, I'll see you in the next one.